Hello, everybody. Welcome to the webinar, first webinar after the holidays. We're excited that you're all here to join us. Just have one short message about our webinars and about our VIP group, and that is that starting from next week, you will be receiving an email with the information about the changes that we'll be making to the webinar, mainly the content of the webinar and the way to ask questions. We're going to be making groups of, we're doing like 4 webinars or 4 weeks on one topic. We're going to be asking everybody to send in their questions on that topic. So we'll be able to cover many topics in the coming year. And again, a big thank you to everybody that's joining and everybody that's spreading the word. And thank God we are growing by leaps and bounds in everything good. So a big thank you to you, and looking forward to a tremendous year in the upcoming year, 5780. Without further ado, I'd like to ask Rabbi Friedman to take it away with the webinar titled, "The Holidays Are Over, Now What?"
Good evening, a good year. Hope everything started off on the right foot. We had our sad moments, our very happy moments. We're off. And it should be a year of only good news for everybody and all the things that we need, all the things that we want, that are for the good. And God certainly wants them, so we should expect a very, very good year. When the holidays are over, where do we go from here? Well, one of the explanations, one of the insights into the collection and intensity of the Yomim Tovim, of the holidays that follow one after the other, Rosh Hashanah, and then Yom Kippur, and then Sukkot, and then Shmini Atzeres, and then Simchas Torah. They're really piled on. And that's because there is no holiday from now until Pesach. Of course, Hanukkah comes in, but it's not a holy day in the sense of not allowed to do work. So it's going to be a long winter, a big break between holidays. So to fortify us for until the spring and then the celebration of Pesach, we have this intense buildup. So we have been fortified. We now have enough inspiration, enough thought, enough reason to inspire us through the entire winter. But to inspire us in what? I think I've before in yeshiva, all the boys in my time, every morning they came to school intending to study well, to be a good student. Everybody came with good intention. And yet, it was quite common. The day came and went, and hadn't really studied anything, didn't come away knowing much. And then the next day, the same thing happened. What is the explanation here? Now, you can say they didn't really want. If they really wanted to, if they were sincere about it, they would have studied. I say they, but it includes me. We were not sincere. Maybe. That's not the full extent or the full insight. We were sincere. We were idealistic. We were teenagers. We wanted to do well. The problem was that the wanting, as sincere as it was, did not produce the results. And the reason, at least I'm was because what we were really saying is, we want to be good. To be good means to want to study and study. We wanted to be that kind of person, that kind of student. But we weren't. So the desire was sincere, but the desire was to be the kind of person who studies. So instead of having a real practical desire to sit and learn a page of Gemara, we wanted to be the kind of person who loves to learn a Gemara. So it wasn't the insincerity, it was what we could call a will. We sincerely wanted to study because we knew that we should. We knew it was the right thing. So there are the resolutions that we make. We want to do this, we want to do that, we want to accomplish, we want to, do you want to accomplish the end result, or do you want to have a desire for the end? Do you want to do, or do you want to want? I wish I wanted to study, because then I would. But the wish to want to study never produces study, because it's not about the study, it's about the desire to study. We trap ourselves in this quite often in our relationships. I really wish to be a good husband, because if I was a good husband, I would do the right thing. But the wish to be a good husband doesn't produce the right thing. And that's why the resolution has to be for the end result, not for the conditions that would enable the result. Like, sometimes you ask someone to put on tefillin, and he says, but I don't even believe in religion and in Torah. And if I believed in it, I would put on the tefillin. And I wish I did believe. I envy you. I just don't have that faith. And the Rebbe taught us not to engage in that kind of conversation. The objective right now is to prompt, not to have the proper attitude and desire that prepares you for the doing of the mitzvah. It's the doing of the mitzvah. That's the thing. So even if our resolutions until today were not exactly as they should have been, we still have time, because the Shabbos after Yom Tov, after all of the holidays, is another opportunity to get everything right on the practical level. It's not a holiday, the holidays are over. But now, what will the emotions and the thoughts and the inspiration and the humility that the holidays brought, what will that produce? So in terms of the outcome, we can still make it happen. First Shabbos of the year sets the tone for our behavior in the year, meaning how our resolutions will find expression in the rest of the year, in the daily activities. Last week, I think it was, we talked about the good idea of giving tzedakah every day, without fail. On Shabbat, you either give tzedakah in terms of food for a guest, or after Shabbos is over. But every day there should be some tzedakah. There are other very good ideas, and that is to study every day before you start your day. Go online, find a good class, a daily class in Chumash and Rashi, Chabad.org, and learn the daily portion of the Torah. That's called keeping up with the times. Because what we read each week from the Torah, which is divided, of course, into 7 sections for the 7 days of the week, that's keeping up with the times. In common language, when you want to give a date of event, when is it going to happen, when did it happen, the traditional way of identifying the time was to say which day of which Torah reading. Like we're going to start with Bereshis. So the first day, Sunday, is the first day of Bereshis into Bereshis. The second day is the second day of Bereshis. So it would be a very, very good idea every day to know what does this week's Torah say today, this day of this week. So that would also be a very good idea. In any way in which we can show pride in our Jewish tradition, in our Jewish learning, in the wisdom of the Jewish sages, that can heal the world. Not to be proud of ourselves, to be proud of what we have, because it's magnificent. So in any way that we can show our confidence and our pride in the beauty and the wisdom of what we have in Judaism, and to inspire another Jew to be proud of their Jewish heritage, and to make a Kiddush Hashem. Let the world know that if they want truth, if they really want to know what happened at Mount Sinai, if they want to get to know God, ask a Jew. Study from Jewish sources and get the picture straight, get the picture right. So this is what happens after the holidays. There's a Hasidic saying that what happens after Yom Kippur, for repentance of tshuva. So the Hasidic statement says, what do we do after Yom Kippur? After Yom Kippur, that's when we really do tshuva. I think what it means is that on Yom Kippur, it's a mitzvah to do tshuva. That's what Jews do. It's a commandment. You fast, you get together, you spend the day in the synagogue, and you do tshuva. What do you do after Yom Kippur? After Yom Kippur, you really do tshuva. Now it's up to you. It's not a congregation, and it's not a mitzvah, and you're not fasting, and it's not the holiest day of the year. Now it's simply a question of, are you going to do the mitzvahs that you're meant to do, or is it going to get left behind? So what do we do when the holidays are over? Then we make the days holy. Holy days are already holy. The days, our mission and our objective is to make the days holy. The regular days. You make a day holy by doing the right thing in every area of life. There's a verse in Tehillim where King David says, "My tears are my bread, my staple, day and night." When they asked me, God, King David was having a hard time. He was suffering. He was persecuted. And people said to him, "You're such a holy guy. You're such a, where is your God? Why doesn't he take care of you?" And their doubts about God caused David to cry day and night. The Hasidic insight is King David is saying, and my tears are my bread, my staple, because they ask me all day long, "Where is your God?" They're not asking it all day long. The question is, I know you have a God in the morning because I see you put on tefillin. You go to shul. I see you have a God at night because you end the day, before you go to sleep, you say the Shema. But all day long, where is your God? If I watched you during the day and I didn't know that you were a Jew, there'd be no sign. There'd be no evidence that you live with God. If you conduct your business in all ways the way God would want you to, if you take a break in the middle of the day to do mincha, if you give tzedakah during the day, you help people, you make phone calls to encourage others, then all day long I know, I can see, you have a God. But when the entire day goes by and there is no evidence, and people can say to you, "Where is your God?" They're not questioning God, they're questioning you. Where are you with God all day long? So the same can be said about holidays and weekdays. On holidays, everybody knows Jews are Jewish. Jews are blowing shofar. Jews don't work on Yom Kippur. They don't play baseball on Yom Kippur. They sit in booths that you can see. They walk around with the lulav and the esrog. We know they're Jewish. We can see they have a God. But when it's not a holy day, in what way are you making the day holy? So really, it's the rest of the year that we should be taking seriously. Holy days are holy days. They're great. But our mission is to take the holy days and make the rest of the days holy. And again, holy means watching that you live by a godly code. You live the way God designed us to live. And I'm sure you've had the opportunity to hear stories all through Yom Tov. Amazing things, Jews walking into a synagogue or into a sukkah for the first time in their life. It's just awesome. The holiday igniting the potential in you. Endless stream of stories. So we take all of that inspiration. Now that we know, we have tasted the godliness that we are capable of, now it's time to elevate the day, the weekday, the non-holiday, and make it holy days. We were talking over Yontif in Shul. There is a tendency, particularly as you get a little older, to wax nostalgic. And somebody during the dancing expressed the desire or the wish to be able to dance the way we used to. And somebody else responded, "You're not supposed to dance the way you used to. We're supposed to dance today the way we will dance in the future." Don't look back to how good it was. Because as good as it was, and there was beauty in it, there was goodness, but as good as it was, it's going to be a lot better. It's going to be a lot better. So we shouldn't want to dance the way we used to. We should be wishful. We should yearn to be able to dance today the way we will dance in the future. Because godliness is becoming more and more real and natural. Less mystical, less mysterious, less elusive. It's just becoming a fact of life. One of the signs that this is happening, the things we used to study and preach about and believe in, strive for, as it becomes more and more earthy, as it becomes more and more natural, it loses that actual mystical element and it just becomes normal. That is such good news. That is real progress. And we're seeing a lot of that. I heard the commentators complaining about the fact that so many have a hard time taking responsibility. We've developed a habit or a cop-out. It's not my fault my family was dysfunctional. It's not my fault the country is dysfunctional. It's not my fault the neighborhood, the schools, the teachers, always something. Something that is responsible for my failure. Some people are critical of that. And justifiably. We should be able to take responsibility for our behavior, if not for our frame of mind and emotional health, but certainly for our behavior, regardless of what's going on in the world around us. Because, or hardly ever, a time when the world around you was perfect and you had a hard time behaving yourself. When was the world perfect? For a very short time under King Solomon, So if we can't be good and you can't do the right thing under imperfect circumstances, then we would never be good. So there's some justification being critical of this attitude. But on the other hand, it is such a perfect example of a reflection in the physical of a development that is happening in the spiritual. Spiritually, we've talked about this. Can anybody be held responsible today for not fulfilling all the mitzvahs? The mitzvahs that we can fulfill. By the way, there are no mitzvahs that we don't fulfill simply because it's difficult. There's no such thing. There are many, many mitzvahs that we do not practice today, not because they're hard, not because we don't want to, but simply because we're not allowed to, according to Torah. God does not allow us. For example, the service all done in the temple. Those things may not be performed outside the temple. So because the temple does not stand in its proper place in Jerusalem, we are not allowed to offer sacrifices. We don't practice the Jubilee year the way it was practiced, because those things can only be practiced when living in Israel, and most Jews being together in Israel. So the reason we don't do many of the mitzvahs, of the 613 mitzvahs, is not because we're not willing to put in the effort. We're just not permitted. So all the mitzvahs that we can do, even in the time of exile when there is no temple and not all Jews are living in Israel, of all of those mitzvahs, which, if you want to be really technical about it, we could be held. You have done it, you didn't do it. All right. We're all willing to accept that truth. But at the same time, can we really be held responsible? Do we know enough? Is it real enough to us that we should be able to consistently avoid anything non-kosher or sinful and do every mitzvah that comes our way? I think not. So on a godly level, people of our generation can legitimately say, it's not my fault. Look, I was born late. I missed the event at Sinai by about 3,300 years. Wasn't there. Maybe my soul was there, but I'm talking about me, the human being, me. So I wasn't there. And God doesn't speak to me privately. And just in the last generation or two, we've had upheavals, devastation. Sure, we ought to try, and we do try, and we do succeed to some degree in being good, doing right. But to say that we are fully responsible, you can't put a people through what we've been put through and then complain that we're not perfect. It doesn't work that way. Now, again, irresponsibility is is never acceptable. But full responsibility can only happen if I live in a steady, peaceful, secure environment where I can attend to my responsibilities, I can attend to my purpose in life, and so on. And then if I don't, then I'm responsible. But when life is so confusing and life is so distracting and life is so painful, historically, can't really. So what's happening in the secular thinking in the world at large is a reflection of what's happening in the spiritual. And it's not a contradiction. In fact, when I talk to people about how we are really not responsible and God forgives us because he knows what we have been through, and so he wants to forgive us. And we want to be forgiven, which is amazing. We could self-righteously say, I don't need to be forgiven. I didn't have much of a choice. I was born in a terrible part of history. I have every reason to be frightened. I have every reason of being disillusioned. I have every reason of being doubtful. We all know this. And with our very next breath, we ask, when is Pesach? When is Shavuos? When is Yom Tov? What time does it begin? How many blessings do we make over the lighting of the candles? It turns out that when we tell people you are not responsible, they will do more mitzvahs. You can explain that psychologically. If you take off the pressure, they feel. It could be more than that. When you tell them you cannot be held responsible, you certainly will not be punished for your failures and so on, then the truth of the mitzvah comes out. So I'm not going to do this to avoid punishment. I'm not going to do this to keep my conscience clear. Conscience is clear. Well, now the mitzvah has a greater appeal. The mitzvah is not there for me to avoid feeling guilty. The mitzvah is not there for me to feel holy. The mitzvah is certainly not there to make me a Jew. So I am a Jew and the mitzvah is holy. And when you take away the distracting consideration, what will this do to me? What will this do for me? When you take all that away, and it's just the Jew and the mitzvah, good things happen. It's a good combination. Mitzvahs will be performed. So the two go hand in hand. The fact that we have, in a sense, paid our dues, we fasted on Yom Kippur, we did what we had to do, we asked for forgiveness, God forgave us, now we're clear. Not only did he forgive us, he doesn't really have that much to forgive us for. And not only does he forgive us, he wants to forgive us. So the forgiveness covered. Now the pressure is off. Pressure is off. Now you're more likely to do mitzvahs. When the pressure is off, you're more likely to do more and to practice more than if the pressure were on. And again, not because nobody wants to be pushed around and nobody wants to be told what to do. On some level, we actually do want to be told what to do. We just want to know what's the right thing. Just guide me, point me in the right direction, and I'll do it. But it's not just that. When you take off the pressure, you let the mitzvah. If there was no reward for the mitzvah, if there was no benefit you could tell, if there's no ulterior motive whatsoever, are you more likely to do the mitzvah or less likely? There are those who are very negative, who say, if there's nothing in it for me, I probably won't do it. And certainly others, the guy in the street, the woman in the street, if you don't give them some benefit, why would they do a mitzvah? Why would they shake a lulav and esrog? Why would they put on tefillin? Why would they light Shabbos candles? Why would they even be interested? You've got to show them how it's good for them in the physical. It'll help you be more functional, help you be more capable, help you be more reliable. All rewards. So you have one person who knows all of that, who is taught all of that. And then he's going to observe a Yom Tov. On the other hand, you have a person who is simply told it's Yom Tov. Pesach is Pesach because God took us out of Egypt. Rosh Hashanah is Rosh Hashanah because that's the day God created Adam and Eve. These days are what they are. And yet, we're not satisfied. We're never satisfied. Because we want to do more. We want to accomplish more. We want to change the world more, faster, more thoroughly. And that's why dramatics are not the Chabad way. It's got to be steady. It's got to be real. It's got to be sincere. And if it takes long, it's worth it. But this is finally the home stretch. Now the world, on the one hand, is so desperate for what we have to offer, and on the other hand, is so willing. It's never been more relevant, and it's never been more welcome. So when we take the pressure off and stop making it sound like this is what human beings need to do in order to be better human beings, or in order to become angels, or in order to be rewarded from heaven, or whatever that is, that doesn't motivate people really, not for the long run. When you tell people it's not your obligation, it's not your accomplishment that is the issue, it's the mitzvah, which today resonates with people because it's truer. It gets closer to the definition of what a mitzvah is. Mitzvah stands on its own, not as a means to an end. So all year we do mitzvahs with an end goal in mind. During holidays, we don't need goals. We don't need to feel accomplished. It's a holy day. We turn our thoughts to God and hope that He feels accomplished. You know, Avram was given 10 tests and he passed them all. God gave himself one test. Can he make the lowest world? It's been 5,780 years. Is God passing his own test? So of course he will. But unfortunately for him, and fortunately for us, his success depends on us. So we're willing to do what it takes. And it doesn't really take that much. A mitzvah or two, performed with devotion, consistently. Consistency is its own virtue, by the way. You can do a little mitzvah many times, or do one mitzvah, a great mitzvah, one time. The performance of the quantity of it overshadows, outpaces the qualitative advantage of other things. So the person who gives a coin to charity every single day, consistently, a little coin to charity, nothing dramatic. He's not saving a town, he's not saving a family, he's not even saving a life. He's simply feeding someone who can feed themselves. But you do that consistently, that's even greater than the greatest one-time mitzvah. When I got married, my wife's grandfather, who was a very, very smart, insightful, deeply as a wedding gift, he gave me a set of Midrash Rabbi, the Midrash on the Torah. And he said something to the effect that he loves learning it and inspires him. And of course, he was suggesting that I do the same. In the Midrash, on the passing of Moshe, Moshe's the description of his passing is in the Torah, which he wrote. And Moses, the servant of God, passed away. Moses wrote that, at least according to some opinion. The other opinion is that God himself wrote it. But the idea that Moses could write that, God was dictating. Anyway, the Midrash makes an interesting comment that when Moshe passed away, heaven and earth were shaken. The angels were shaken. Torah was shaken. Prophecy was shaken. And they all cried when he passed away. The Torah cried because Moses was its greatest teacher. Prophecy cried and said there will never be another prophet like Moshe, because he was unique in prophecy. The earth cried, who will guide us? Where will our inspiration come from? Heavens cried, that the earth was now without its righteous, godly light. And God cried. And this is amazing. The Midrash says, what is it that God cried over Moshe? Was it because he was the greatest prophet? Because he was the teacher of Torah? Because he was the guiding spiritual light? The Midrash says God cried, and he said, who will defend the sinners when I'm angry at them? Who will stand up to me when I'm angry at those who don't properly? That's what he missed most about Moshe. So we see that when God comes to Moshe and says, I'm angry at the people, I'm going to punish them. And Moshe asks for forgiveness for them. Why does God tell him this? And what right does Moshe have to argue? God says there, Moshe says no. Or in one case, well, if they're going to go, I'm going to go with them. It's quite obvious. God tells Moshe that he's angry at the people and he's going to punish them, so that Moshe will tell him that the people are not that bad and they don't deserve to be punished. God doesn't want Moshe to agree with him. He wants Moshe to argue, to defend the wicked. And it becomes very clear, because when Moshe passed away, of all of the great things that Moshe did, this is what God, who is going to stand up against me in favor or in behalf of those who are sinful? So, of course, it tells you something about Moshe, it tells you something about God. It also tells you something about the sinful people. Where do they stand? Where do they fit in God's picture? God cried that the person who defended them always was not going to be there, because he'll defend them from heaven. But he won't be with them on earth, and then from the ground up. So the fact that God desperately wants someone to defend them tells you how he feels about them, even if no one defends them. But God wants them defended, protected. So it shouldn't really take that much of meditation and concentration and rethinking. It should be rather quite clear and obvious. We got to do more. We've got to do more, because there's so much we can do. And so much, and it needs to be done quickly. The crazier the world gets, the more desperately it wants truth, innocence, authentic values, authentic teachings, authentic goodness. I was reading over Yom discourse that the previous Rabbi gave, in which he says that the human instinct for self-preservation can very easily get out of control. and go beyond its intended purpose, to where you become so wrapped up in self-promotion and self-defense and in self-glorification, that even your kindness becomes toxic. Brilliant description. Political language. In a brilliant description, the previous Rebbe says, because a person is so self-conscious, because he is so devoted to himself, in love with himself, even his kindness, which is real. It's real kindness, but it is so permeated with self-awareness and self-completion that the person who he is being kind to will suffer from it. It will make his life miserable. And then the Rebbe says, to the point of bloodshed. It can kill him. You can literally kill someone with kindness if the kindness is shot with this self-awareness. And it's not just, now that I did you a favor, you're going to owe me. There are strings attached. I did this for you, now you're indebted, now you're going to, and I will never let you forget what I did for you. That's the surface, but it goes much deeper than that. It literally does not allow a person to live, to breathe. And it is kindness, but it's kindness with self-obsession. So without the wisdom of Torah, it's not that we won't get to heaven. We won't know how to live on earth. Heaven is not our mystery. Our real mystery is, how do you make earth work? How do you make life on earth what it can be? That's the mystery. That's the challenge. And to that, we have the only authentic answer, the Torah. So the conservative rabbi, Park Avenue Synagogue, on Yom Kippur, in very, very clear and unambiguous words, told his congregation, it's time to do mitzvahs. It's time to do the mitzvahs. Shabbos, kosher, tefillin, mezuzah. It's time to be authentic again. And that's all that's asked of us. Be authentic. If you're Jewish, do it Jewishly. You're Jewish, eat Jewish. You work as a Jew, work as a Jew, not on Shabbos, etc., etc. So it's not a question of becoming something you're not. It's not a question of becoming spiritual or holy. It's simply authentic. Or as one man said, I wasn't raised religious. I wasn't raised with observance, but I keep kosher. Why? Well, who else should keep kosher? Non-Jews? Kosher is a Jewish thing. I'm Jewish. Why can't I keep kosher? Because I'm not holy? Nobody ever said that you have to be holy to be Jewish. because I'm a, and kosher is Jewish. Nobody else keeps kosher. Jews do it. So the more natural, the more simple, the more native, the more organic the Torah becomes, the closer we are getting to Mashiach. Because in the days of Mashiach, it will be natural than a Jew doing Jewish things. All Jewish things. Naturally. The holidays set us on that path. It reminds us how Jewish we are. It reminds us how good it feels to be a Jew. And it reminds us how much more we can do as Jews. So now we have a couple of months. A long month, sir. I'm speaking to you from Minnesota, where I spent Yom Tov with family, and it was heavenly. The family, I mean. And we can use these months now to make days holy, because the holy days inspired us. It would be a good thing that whoever is joining this project to actually report. If you're studying the parsha, the daily portion, send a little note describing how it is, what it does, how it feels. If you're giving tzedakah every day, notice what it does to you, to the day, the people around you. It'd be nice to share good news, and particularly really good news, which is the goodness of Torah. So we'll be back in New York next week, and we'll talk to you from there. It's been an incredible month. Been all over the place. We hear lots of good things happening all over the world, thanks to the allows us to know instantly what's going on everywhere in the world. And we should have only good news. Even fake news can be good news, but it should be really good news, positive, upbeat, inspiring life, celebrating life, and bringing out the true meaning of life, fulfilling the purpose for which we were born. Talk to you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being there. Thanks for everything. Particularly the pleasure of just venting. Have a great year.